Hello, everybody. Welcome to Let's Talk Football. My name is John Halpin, alongside Chris Palmer. How you doing today, my brother?
Doing good, man. December's here. It's getting cold. Football's getting better. Playoffs are getting closer.
I know you're all probably tired of hearing us say playoffs, but hey, man, they're right around the corner, and we are excited for the playoffs. But before we get to that, let's get to our Week 14 recap for this past week. Starting with Thursday night, the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions, and this was a really good one. Lions ultimately won 34-31, but man, Packers and Lions, man, this is such a great rivalry just resurged in the modern day.
This is going to be a great rivalry for years to come, but I think it's going to be flipped in Detroit's weight for a little while. Dan Campbell, fourth down conversion king. You know, their fourth down football team to a fault. We saw it bite them last year. The question is, will it bite them this year? With a good, strong win.
Oh yeah, the Lions are gonna live and die by Dan Campbell's huge balls, man.
The fourth down fucking football, man. That's to a fault. It's
I know.
wild.
It's crazy, but hey, it gives the Lions that identity, and they are just rolling their way through the NFC. So let's move on to Sunday's slate of games, starting out in Pittsburgh, where the Pittsburgh Steelers took care of business over the Cleveland Browns, 27-14. Another solid win for the Steelers.
Just keep the ball rolling, man. We just stay hot. We're one of the more dangerous teams in the AFC.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's move on to the MetLife, where the New York Giants took on the New Orleans Saints. And the Saints won 14-11, but this was a very, I don't want to say ugly, but very defensive-oriented game. A lot of missed opportunities by both teams, but good on the Saints to coming away with the win over the Giants.
You know, at the end of the day, someone kind of has to win. You know, it's gonna come. At this point, it's coming down to which franchise functions better, and that's the Saints. You know, the Giants are in shambles. The Saints need help, but they got into a lot of injury trouble this year. They're still a more organized organization moving forward, so that's why they came away with the win here.
I think one of the big headlines was there was a plane that went around the MetLife saying, "Mara, please fix this dumpster fire."
Oh my
And it
God.
circled around the stadium for a couple of times. And they definitely saw it because everyone saw that in the New Jersey area. But, man, Giants, we'll have to keep an eye on them for this offseason. Let's move on to Miami, where the New York Jets and the Miami Dolphins had a pretty solid game between the two of them. Dolphins won 32-26 in overtime. I know we'll talk more Dolphins later on in this episode, but man, the Jets, this was one of the few games that they actually looked competent on offense.
Yeah, it's very few and far between you find the Jets looking good, but hey, Dolphins just keep chipping away wins. You know, that's what they need moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Let's move on to Tennessee, where the Jags came to play a division rival opponent, Tennessee Titans, and the Jags under Mac Jones won against the Titans 10-6. This is probably the outcome I think a lot of people had going into this game. But hey, good on the Jags getting a win. But hey, both these teams fall to 3-10 for the year.
Hey, they both have a lot of trouble and they need a lot of help. So I hope they take this game with a grain of salt, both ways. Even with the win and with the loss, it's just move on.
Yeah.
Move on and start looking for next year to start filling the holes you need.
Mm-hmm. Hey, there's 4 more weeks of the regular season, so just got to make it through there.
Right.
So let's move on to Philadelphia, where we had a pretty solid game between the Panthers and the Eagles. Eagles won 22-16, but again, Carolina keeping it close, and they were one play away from actually beating the Eagles. If Leggett almost made that catch right at the end, we'd have a whole different outcome of this game. But hey, good on the Eagles to get this win. But again, that was another good loss by the Panthers, man.
Listen, that's 3 games in a row where the Panthers have played up to their competition, and this time leading into the fourth quarter, they were winning. And even though it was a drop this past Sunday, who knows that on any other Sunday that someone lets that catch go? That's a good play. That's a 50-50 ball at the very least.
Yeah, that was good on the Panthers to keep it close for the Eagles, but the Eagles, hey, they just keep their win streak alive and they just
Hey,
keep on rolling in the NFC. Let's move down to Tampa, where the Las Vegas Raiders came to play the Buccaneers, and the Bucks won a pretty solid game against the Raiders. 28-13 was the final. Um, just turnovers, man, just turnovers, turnovers, turnovers. They will absolutely kill you every single game.
yeah, 100%. Buccaneers are the sheer better team. They should have rolled them. It's actually almost surprising that there wasn't more points against.
Yeah, we'll dive a little bit more into the Raiders this episode, but good win for the Bucks. They keep their playoff hopes alive in the NFC. Let's move on to Arizona, where the Seahawks and the Cardinals had a very interesting divisional game. Seattle won 30-18, but the score I think doesn't tell the whole story. There was one drive towards the very end when it was 27-18, where Kyler had the ball and they just went down the field, killed a lot of time on the clock. It was a good drive. Had to ultimately settle for the field goal, and then their kicker missed the field goal. And from that point on, the Cardinals were just deflated on offense with like 4 minutes left in the game. And that was a very pivotal drive in that game. But good on Seattle to just being the more opportunistic team. Um, Jackson Smith Najigba, man, he is a wide receiver that is just emerging in Seattle, and we're going to be seeing his name a lot if Seattle's making the postseason.
Yeah, good strong win for Seattle and let them take a step away in that division, start pulling away. Arizona's in must-win mode, and this was a bad loss.
Yeah, they're still alive within the playoff hunt, but their road does not get easier. I know Seattle does have a difficult road ahead of them as well, but the NFC West, hey, that even though Seattle has the lead right now, it's still very wide open, and the Rams are very much alive in this as well. Um, for the 49ers, they actually beat the Bears 38-13. So the 49ers stay alive in the NFC West as well. But man, Chicago, I'm not sure if they're winning another game for the rest of the year.
Oh my God. Can we please stop with this hype of Caleb Williams? It's enough. A beaten and broken San Francisco offense put 38 points unanswered against you. Stop. Move on from Caleb Williams, please.
It was a Caleb Williams, the stat that I saw that I wanted to mention, sacked 56 times this year. Absolutely abominable for the Bears to let that happen. But man, see, there's going to be a lot of interesting decisions that's going to have to be made in Chicago this offseason. So we'll definitely have to keep an eye on the Bears. Let's move on to LA. I mentioned the Rams before, and the Rams had a big upset win over Buffalo. 44-42 was the final. It wasn't really a shootout, but man, the Rams just looked absolutely dominant on offense. Matt Stafford still getting it done, and again, that NFC West between all those teams, it's still very much wide open. Um, and don't count the Rams out because they're a team that I don't think any team wants to play in the playoffs.
Especially now late in the year as they get healthier.
Mm-hmm.
Remember the Bills are still playing very clean football. But as the Rams get healthier, they get nastier. And this Rams offense has capabilities of besting the Bills, and that's something we haven't really seen this year. So good on the Rams, and that's something to really not shake your head at.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let's move on to the Sunday night primetime game, the second game that we talked last week, and that was the Chargers and the Chiefs. And the Chiefs coming again with another close win, 19-17. Man, it's see it every week, man. We just see it every week. A doink off the upright to claim to the AFC West for the ninth straight time. Congrats for the Chiefs, but man, for the Chargers, you can't get any closer than that, man. You can't get any closer than that.
This really is the Chiefs villain arc. It's just every win, people just dislike it
Yes.
more and more. It's just every win, it's like, fuck, really? Again, they won? Because it's just, again, you won by the skin of your teeth on a game that you probably shouldn't have won by all rights. The Chargers put up a great fight. It's just, fuck. It happened again. The Chiefs did what they do. And it's, again, they've turned into the Patriots, where they've slowed the game down, and it's just death by 1,000 cuts. We're going to beat you 100 different ways. We don't need to
Yeah.
score 50 anymore. We can score 30 and just take all the time away.
They don't even need to score 30. They could score 19 and still win games.
And take every minute off the clock.
Mm-hmm. I know. Well, hey, when they beat us in the AFC title game, they only scored 17 points. That was it. That was all they needed was 17. And
Right.
just hey, that's who they've become now. And hey, good on the Chiefs for this win, and I know we'll be talking more about them in the playoffs because they'll be in the playoffs again, like they are every year.
Right.
Let's move on to Dallas for the final game of Week 14. The Cincinnati Bengals and the Dallas Cowboys. This was actually a pretty fun game to watch. With both these teams, they're kind of out of the playoff race for the most part. But Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase having a career year this year. Bengals won 27-20. But man, this was a fun one in Dallas, and I know Jerry is very upset at that, but can't win them all, Jerry.
No, and I think there's a story to be there where Michael Parsons has shown visible frustration leaving the field before the game's even over.
Mm-hmm.
Walking off the field with over a minute left. He's walking into the locker room. So he's clearly frustrated with how this team has turned out this year. There should be frustrated. There needs to be a lot of things sorted out moving forward in Dallas.
Yeah, I think for Micah Parsons, one thing to keep an eye on, and I'm sure that will be talked about as it gets closer in the offseason, is that Micah Parsons is still on his rookie deal. And he doesn't, if Jerry offers him an extension after his rookie deal, he doesn't have to take that.
He can
So
go into free agency.
he could move to free agency if he elects to. So I know Jerry's going to flash him a lot of money, and he's going to want to keep Micah Parsons a Cowboy for life. But Micah Parsons, you got to ask yourself, it's times like this. This is the Dallas Cowboys. When the lights are brightest and all eyes are on you, this team just cannot do it. And
Right.
and it's like, is that worth all that money? Maybe. It depends on what a player's motives are. But this is just one thing to keep an eye on as that goes on. But hey, Dallas is going to be Cowboys are going to Cowboy, man.
Yeah. No, I hope if it comes down to it and Michael Parsons is looking at a Dallas contract, he looks back at this game and this season specifically, and he understands that this is what it's been for 10 years or more.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what it's going to be until either Mike McCarthy is gone or Jerry Jones is gone, or both.
I think it's just Jerry Jones. He needs to not be the GM. That's the biggest thing right there. That's the biggest if he just gives over the reins to even his son, that's fine. But
I don't even know that giving it to his son would be good.
It may be, it may not be, but I think just getting it out of Jerry's hands is a big plus. But I also do agree with you as well. I don't think Mike McCarthy is really the guy in Dallas as well. But I know his status with the Cowboys will be in question going into this offseason. But we know Jerry. Jerry likes to hold on to players and coaches for as long as he can. So I don't think Jerry wants to get rid of McCarthy. But we'll see come this offseason.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
It's going to be very interesting. So there you have it, guys. That is our Week 14 recap. We had a lot of very interesting games of football. And again, playoffs are getting closer, so every game really matters to every team. And some teams are really fighting for their playoff chance to stay alive. And I think that's why the first game that we wanted to talk about is the Dolphins and the Texans. Looking at the schedule, this was a very interesting one for us. And I know, CP, you wanted to talk about this one. So I'll pass the torch to you, my friend. What are your thoughts of this Dolphins-Texans match going into this week?
Well, remember, going into the year, Houston was my bold prediction for the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
And as they started out this year, it was like full steam ahead. But as the year went on, you saw them kind of stagnate. Then they went on a 1-5 series out of 6 games. They lost, it was 1-5 out of the last 6 in the last 8. In the last 8 games, they lost 5 or something along those lines.
Okay.
So they kind of dipped.
Mm-hmm.
Along those terms was when Tua was hurt. So the Dolphins started low, and now they're clawing their way up.
Mm-hmm.
Houston started high, and now they're kind of on a descent. And they're more or less meeting in the middle, where now they're both at the point where they have to win. These, again, I've been saying it for weeks now, must-win games on both sides. This is the epitome of that. They are both at the same point fighting for playoff potential right now for different reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Houston on a descending record, and Dolphins on an ascending record. Both of them coming off of a good win, but I think the momentum still shifts in Miami. But the problem there is, we kind of spoke about this offline, like off air. The question of, is it too little too late right now for Miami?
Mm-hmm.
They lost a lot of crucial games without Tua on the field. And as it's getting colder, can you guarantee that he'll be on the field the rest of the season? Which you absolutely cannot.
Mm-hmm.
Houston is a much healthier team going into late in the year. This is going to be an interesting game, and it's really going to come down to discipline. It's going to come down to turnovers. And it's going to come down to who can stop the run at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to be very interesting to watch.
Yeah, I'm with you, and looking at this game, I can't help but agree. Exactly, just the trajectory that both of these teams are on, where the Dolphins are ascending and have more reason to fight each game in out, because playoffs are not guaranteed. Whereas the Texans, they're kind of slacking off. And when you look at their season so far this year, it's like they had, out of their wins, only 2 of them were blowouts. One was a blowout against the Patriots, and the other one was against
Jacksonville, I think.
No, not Jacksonville, actually. I forget who else it was. Oh, the Jets. No, not the Jets. They lost the Jets. I forget offhand. But
I'll look it
aside
up.
from
Keep
that,
talking.
yeah, they've been a lot of their wins are close wins. Like, even against their own division opponents, against Jacksonville. I remember the last matchup. It was 23-20, Texans over the Jags.
They beat the Cowboys 34-10.
That's the one. Yep. Yeah, so they beat the Cowboys.
They beat the Browns 45-10.
True.
45-14.
So they really beat up on the bad teams very well. But even against close competition, the Texans are they're on that fine line between their competition. And I think when you look at the Texans' schedule, they don't have to win this game to still make the playoffs. Dolphins do. Dolphins have to basically win out. Texans, after this, they play the Dolphins, they play the Chiefs, they play the Ravens, and then they close out playing the Titans. So realistically, the Texans could lose the next 3 games, beat the Titans, and then just win. And then just win the AFC South, because they already have 2 wins over the Colts, and unless the Colts win out, that's their only competition within their division. So Texans are pretty much going to win the AFC South. If they could beat the Titans Week 18, I think that's more than probable. Whereas the Dolphins, they don't control their own destiny. If they lost to the Jets last week, they were mathematically eliminated.
Right.
That's
they're fighting for their lives every week.
That's the thing, is like they are fighting for their lives. And and again, it's that slow start. Every season, you got to take into context the whole season as well, because when it's all said and done, and we just kind of look at the numbers on the sheets, I have pages and pages of like notes from in this notebook, all just different numbers, but no season is created equal. And when you take the Dolphins season into context, it's like, man, it could have been so much better than what it was if Tua did not get hurt.
Right.
And because they were a completely different team when Tua was hurt. Since he's returned, the Dolphins are 4-3. And I think that it's not good enough to lose to the Texans and then be 4-4 8 weeks out from an injury or from a almost career-ending concussion again.
Again.
And so Dolphins are fighting for their Tua. I think has really proven himself to the Dolphins, where it's like he is a great contributor to the success of the organization, because without his absence was felt in those couple weeks. And it's like the Dolphins still have a chance because they have Tua, because he's on the field. And again, I know we talk a lot about Tua and the Dolphins, but I just want to keep it at least into the football realm of it. But this game, let me rewind. This past game against the Jets was very proving, because again, any given Sunday, right? Any team can win any given Sunday. So your matchup, you can't underestimate your matchup. We know what the Jets are, but the Dolphins, they got to take their opponents seriously, and they did. And at the very end of the game, when they needed to have those drives to tie the game for overtime and to win the game in overtime, Tua got them exactly what they needed. Made the comeback, made the decisions necessary that led them to having success in that game. And there's a lot to be said with that. And it's because he's a part of this organization that they are still alive so far in the 2024 season. But they don't control their destiny. The Bills already have the AFC East. It's already locked. Buffalo's getting that one playoff game. If the Dolphins have to make it, it has to be a wild card. And at best, at the moment, they're 6-7 at the moment. They're
something like that. Yeah,
something like that, right? They're 6-7. They have to win. At worst, they can be is 10-7, right? That's the worst they can be. Oh, sorry, that's the best they can be. At best, they can be 10-7. At worst, they can be 6-11.
Right.
And so, and there's a big difference between. And right now, it's like you're playing for. Again, if the playoffs were to end today, Dolphins are competing with the Ravens, the Broncos, and the Chargers, all for those playoff spots. And the Colts. And the Colts for those playoff spots. So it's AFC, and I mean, even still the Bengals, too, somehow still alive. They're one game away, too. But man, this game has a lot on the line. And if the Texans lose to this, they play the Chiefs after that, and then they play the Ravens, and those two that's tough. And it's like, if you don't want to be going into the playoffs, that you lost 4 out of your last 5 games.
Right.
And so this game, I'm going to have my eyes on this game. This is going to be a really, really scrappy game.
Yeah, and it's a great point when you turn and you look at the value that Tua brings to Miami in terms of their offense. But it's almost disheartening, because again, it looks like it's going to be too little, too late, because of how well Bo Nix turned out for Denver this year, how well Jim Harbaugh turned out for the Chargers this year. It almost looks like the wild cards, the brackets are kind of setting themselves up as time goes on. The Dolphins need a lot of help, and he needs help from teams that don't do well with losing. Like, they're winning really good games. But the best thing they can do is just continue their momentum and finish strong, even if they don't make the playoffs this year. If you win on a good stretch, like you've done the past couple of years,
Hmm.
just chip away and chip away and chip away, and then you'll find yourself in the postseason.
Hmm.
So you take everything with positives. It's unfortunate to know that had to have been on the field this entire year, we'd more or less be having a totally different conversation about Miami.
Hmm. And that's the truth. And it's, again, we talk about Tua and his health and his safety, and again, we want him to make the best decision for him too. And because we like him as the person, and we also like him as the quarterback too. Like, it's fun. Like, he's rejuvenated. His presence really rejuvenated a struggling Miami team. For many many years, the Dolphins were uh
In limbo, to say the least.
yeah, exactly, in coaching and quarterback. It was very weird, a very weird time in like the 2010s and late 2010s into early 2020s Dolphins era. But here we are, and again, I don't think the Dolphins are going to make the playoffs, even if they do win out, because the AFC is like, there's so many good teams in there. Again, if the playoffs were to end today, it's Ravens, Chargers, and Broncos, and and realistically, if all of those teams get 11 wins, Dolphins are out, even if the Dolphins do win out. You know what
Right,
I
no
mean?
matter what. Right.
So it's like, if they all get 11 wins, and it's like, for the Texans, um, you don't want to be fourth in
No,
when it
you
comes to the
don't
playoffs,
want that.
because let's be honest here. If the Texans are going into the playoffs losing 4 out of their last 5, and the Ravens come into town, um, that's not a favorable matchup for the Texans. And it's like,
No.
you best get into playoff form soon, and it better click now. And that's the thing. It's like, it's, if the Dolphins beat you, man, that's gonna be tough, because those games against the Chiefs and the Ravens, that's a really tough back to back schedule. And I know, what was it on the Ravens one? That's Christmas Day,
Right. That's going to be a rough game.
and then you guys play the Chiefs Christmas Day as well.
Yeah, we play on on Netflix,
Yep,
actually.
which is wild to think
They
about.
come
But
to us, and it's crazy to think that that's a more winnable game
yes.
for the Steelers
Mhm.
than it is for Houston to go into Baltimore.
I think
Or are you
we
going into Houston?
I think we go into Houston. I don't have my phone on me, but
Okay.
um, but yeah, I think we go into Houston. But either way, man, that's going to be, especially when you and I play week 16. So before Christmas week, we
Right.
play that Sunday
Right
before
before
Christmas.
that.
So we'll have our absolute bloodbath that Sunday, and then we gotta limp it.
We got to limp into Christmas
Christmas
Day
Day playing division
playoff
leaders.
games.
Yeah.
We're playing playoff games after beating ourselves to pulps. That's a beautiful thing.
So that's the thing too, is like, again, the trajectory in which these teams are going. I think that was the right word to really start off the segment. It was trajectory, and because we see it too, the teams that do have the most success in the playoffs are the teams that just get hot in December and win the games that they need to. And the Dolphins right now look like they have won the games that they have needed to, with Tua back at the helm. Again, 4-3. You would have liked them to win that Green Bay game. That would have been a big win for the Dolphins, but that was tough. Thanksgiving Day in Green Bay in the cold. That's and Jordan Love and the NFC North is just on absolute fucking steroids this year. So, um, but the Texans, man, I do have to say, keep D'Amico Ryan as long as you can, man.
Yeah.
He's such a great coach and such a great fit for the organization of Houston. He has brought them an identity. Right, yes, they're kind of in a lull at the moment, but that's not forever. And I think that there's a lot of like great talent in Houston, and there's a lot of players that want to play for D'Amico Ryan. And I think that both of these head coaches, they're young head coaches. Mike McDaniel for the Dolphins and D'Amico Ryan for the Texans. Hey, if you guys keep them as long as you can, good things are going to happen, man, because they have a vision for these teams. They have an identity for these teams. And they are, when you look at them, it's like you want to see those games. You want to see these types of games. It's not like the Jets and Giants where it's like you have to stomach a game.
No, because you want these teams to do good for the good of football. Like
Mhm.
when D'Amico Ryan became the coach of the Texans, everyone's head turned and was like, "Oh, that's an interest. Let's look and see." And then he totally flipped the franchise and he gave it a pulse and he gave it a vision and he gave it a culture.
Mhm.
And then CJ Stroud came in and he molded to it perfectly. Now then you go and you get Tank Dell and then you get a couple of other pieces and now you
Mhm.
are where you are now. It's okay to have a lull, but you need to understand where you are at the end of the year. But again, they are a very young team and there's going to be some growing pains. They need to remember that this is a full season type of thing.
Mhm.
You can't guess out week 12. Can't guess out week 10. You have to do a full 18 weeks. At the very least, you have to do a full 18 weeks.
Mhm.
And if you start to slip, you have to catch yourself. This bye week that they had, it was a much needed bye week for them. You got to come back strong off this bye week, and you got to
Yep.
try and grab a win.
Mhm.
And if you don't off of a bye week, that's signs of trouble.
Oh yeah, and Texans are kind of in the same boat as the Ravens right now, where we need to get hot off this bye week, and
Right.
if we are expected to be in the playoffs, we need to we need to be the best versions of ourselves
It's the final
from
stretch.
exactly. So it's like playoffs start now.
Right.
And and I hope that the Texans enter that mode and that mindset just kind of clicks for them. And because they have great players on offense and defense. They have a great coaching staff under D'Amico Ryan. They have uh, a plethora of talent on both sides of the ball. And the thing is for me is I'm a firm believer that if you're a team that has a lot of close games, it's going to come back to bite you at the worst times. And I think that there's with the Texans, they've been having again, they beat up on the bad teams very well, but they've had a lot of close games. Um, and I do believe that about the Chiefs as well. I know, like that's its own separate thing, but again, close games. But again, close games in the playoffs, it just takes one play and it changes the whole thing. And it doesn't matter if it's by the quarterback, by defensive personnel. It just takes one play to just change the whole perspective of a team season. And this is the time to enter playoff mode.
If you don't enter playoff mode off of a bye week, and that's just in general, in my opinion, if that's your break, to me, that is the point where the league feels that you as a team are going to make the changes you need to make a playoff run.
Mm-hmm.
You need to answer that call. You guys had the liberty of having the latest week in football to have a bye week. That you need to take into full advantage. There are teams who had bye weeks
Week 4.
week 4 and week 5, so they're beaten and bruised and they don't want to play anymore.
Mm-hmm.
You need to take full advantage of that. You have to, and it again, like you said, it starts here, and both of these teams need to be in playoff mode moving forward. The Dolphins, they need a lot of help, and I don't see them getting it this year. The Texans, their fate is more or less in their hands, but if they start throwing games that they need to win, they're going to find themselves in a situation that they can't get themselves out of.
Yeah. Dolphins, man. You just gotta keep it alive, man. Just they have to just keep it alive the best they can. Um, it really does feel like a playoff game. Just off the bat, there's just so much at stake, and just the momentum just carrying both of these teams. I'm excited for this one, though.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of excitement going into it. Of course, you want to see the matchups, but there's always that little piece. Again, there's always that little piece of caution when it comes to watching the Dolphins touch the field, especially when it comes to just how physical that defense on Houston is.
Oh yeah,
The physicality that comes from that Houston defense is pretty nasty, all across the board. We're not going to get into the Al Shahir thing. We're not going to do that. He's not going to be there. He's not going to be in the game. That's regardless. The Texans as a defense are a swarming pursuit and tackle team. And that's what puts them apart from a lot of defenses in this league. And they are extremely good at pass defense as well. Back in, we were talking about the Houston Texans. They would have the pursuit and tackle defense, top tier, more or less top tier pass defense. But with Tua on the field, the Dolphins have a top tier passing offense. So it's going to be really cool to see the matchups. Who locks down Tua? Who locks down Waddle? Waddle has only had a couple. I think he only has 400-yard games so far this year. And the Texans have been doing a really good job at holding teams under their game average yards per game when they play. So it's going to be very interesting to watch.
Yeah, and it's kind of similar to, I guess, the Bills' defense against the Rams this past week, where it's like you have obviously your ace wide receiver that you have to guard, right? In that case, it was, you could say, either Puka or Cooper. In this case, it's Tyreek. Do you one-on-one and bring the safety for the help, and then leave one-on-one coverage on Waddle or Puka Nacua? And then what if you have Kyron Williams or Devon Achane in the backfield? Like, who do you really cover? Because both of them, and I gotta say, Achane as well, he has really found a great fit in Miami. This is the second year running back. He has been a great force for them. He knows exactly how they want to be on offense, and I think he gives them a lot of great balance in the running game for there. So I want to give a big shout out to Devon Achane. But it's again, the big challenge is that Texans defense against that Miami offense. But I also want to see that matchup of the Texans offense against that Miami defense, because Miami's defense, this is aside from the Bills, this is probably one of the toughest orders you have to ask of them for the year, because the Texans are just loaded with talent, with just young talent that is just great. And big shout out to Joe Mixon. He's having a career year in Houston as well, and it has been so great to see. And again, he gives them that balance. We've talked about it before on the show, where a best friend for a quarterback is a great running game, and we see that with both these teams as well. They do it. Mixon's a little bit more by power, especially in his later years, but he still has a little bit of that speed. But Acham is more of that speed running back. That's that really fast halfback, and is great in the passing game as well. Both of these offenses are really dynamic, but which defense bends and which one breaks? I think that is the real big question for this game.
Yeah, and as of late, we've seen a lot of bending from the defense on Houston. But when it comes to Achane, he's not only in addition to that speed, which is the name of the game in Miami, which is speed. He can also catch the ball as a running back, so he is a receiving halfback. So he's in addition to that pass game as well as. But again, Joe Mixon I think he was great when he played in Cincinnati. It sucked fucking playing him twice a year. It's even better watching him succeed in Houston.
Yeah.
So we don't have to play him twice a year, first of all. It sucked playing him twice a year. But absolutely shout out Joe Mixon with how he's been playing and how he's fit to the D'Amico Ryan story and how Houston's supposed to be going.
Yeah. Again, there's just a lot of talent on both of these teams right now, both sides of the ball. And right now, we enter playoff mode with a lot on the line. And of course, this was a matchup that we had to talk about. And I'm really glad we did because this game is just going to be just a preview of what's to come in the playoffs.
It's gonna be interesting when it comes to playoff energy,
Mm-hmm.
but you also have to keep in mind there's a good chance that one of these teams won't be in the playoffs. So if they
Yeah.
don't answer that playoff energy, it could really turn sideways quick.
Mm-hmm.
They have to answer a playoff favorite with the same type of competition. And we
Mm-hmm.
haven't seen Tua with a huge playoff competitor just yet.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see.
We shall see, man. But there's a lot of great football in this game, and just a lot of great matchups. But CP, any final thoughts on this game?
Keep your head up when it comes to this game because this could really turn into an electric game and it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm so excited for this one. Um, but that was the first game that we wanted to talk about this week. Um, the second game, I think it is just as interesting, but probably for very different reasons. But that is the Falcons and the Raiders. And I know what a lot of people think is like, why the hell would they talk in this when there's the Lions and the Bills and the Steelers and the Eagles and a lot of other great games? But in all reality, we're probably going to be talking about those teams come January, right? We're going to be talking about a lot of those teams come there. This is probably one of the few times we get to really talk, the last of the few times where we get to really talk about the bad teams in totality. Um, but CP, I want to ask you a question real quick, my friend. So the Raiders. I was looking up some stats today, man. They are no surprise that they're bad. But my question to you is the average team, what should the total rushing yards be for an average team in the NFL right now with their
Like
combined running backs, combined quarterbacks for total rushing yards for that team? What do you think it should be?
like per game.
At this point in the year. No, in totality in yards.
Oof. I would say probably like on average probably between 700 and 1,000 yards as a team.
Okay. And for at least like this point in the year, teams on average are about was it 1,300, 1,400 rushing yards or so.
Okay.
So about 1,400, let's say 1,300, just a little bit below average, right? The Raiders have the fewest rushing yards in the entire NFL at 1,000.
Okay.
They are they are a really bad team, and I guess that's no surprise. But I think that when you look at them play, I I looked at this matchup and I'm thinking, I'm like, why did they schedule this game for prime time? Out of all the games that they could have had this week, you could have had Bills Lions, you could have had Steelers Eagles. Again, great matchups this week. Hell, you could have put swapped the Thursday game for this game and put the Rams 49ers game on this Monday night. On this Monday night. But Falcons Raiders, why did they put this on there? And I think that the NFL wants the Raiders to be good. They are historically that bad boy persona that is like the thorn in everyone's side, and they're just not that. And there's a lot to be said about the Raiders and the Falcons. But CP, I want to get your thoughts on this game real quick.
This is an interesting game going in, right? Right now the Raiders hold the number one overall pick.
I thought that was the Giants.
I thought it was the Raiders because they're 2-11.
So the Giants. It's one of those two teams.
I don't know. I could have sworn it was the Raiders.
That's how bad they are. They can
So
be
they're holding a top 5 pick right now in their
a
hands.
top 2 pick essentially.
Top 2 pick essentially. I'll actually look up real quick to see who
That's
has
the thing too. Is like Raiders are just. You don't think they are as bad as they are, but it's like when you they're just as bad as the Giants, sitting at 2-11. And
Right now, it's projected to be the Raiders as of 4 hours ago.
okay, but at the moment, I think I guess it's still the Raiders, the first overall pick. So hey, they could do a lot of rebuilding this year.
So right now, they're playing with the first overall pick in their hands.
Yep.
Their team, like, I think I have to agree with you that they're a team that the NFL is almost force feeding that they want to be in the spotlight because they're the heel
Yeah, they're
of
like
the
the
NFL.
heel. Yeah,
You know what I mean?
But that's the Chiefs at this point in time.
No, the Chiefs are the villain. Like that,
Exactly. They're the heel. They're the villain.
Yeah, but everyone likes to cheer for the villain. No one's cheering for the Chiefs right now. Everyone wants to see them lose. When it comes to the Raiders, the NFL are like force feeding them because it's you can't even explain why they're trying to force feed the Raiders right now because there's not a lot of good. The only good thing to come out of the Raiders right now is Max Crosby,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the truth. You know, and and there's a good chance he won't be a Raider next year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the best player on your team is probably not going to be there anymore. That's just the story of the Raiders.
Right, because you dumped your quarterback, you dumped your wide receiver,
Dumped your running back.
you dumped your running back, and all of them. Well, your running back went to another team, and now he's about to make a playoff run.
Yep.
Your wide receiver got schmoozed by a quarterback.
And has to be traded.
And asked to be traded. Quarterback, you dumped and he got hurt, but you still got to pay him. You guys are... We like to use this term a little loosely, the rolling dumpster fire.
I think a lot of the Raiders' problems, and we'll talk about the Falcons too, because the Falcons are kind of
falling apart as they stand.
A little bit falling apart. They're 6-6 at the moment, but the Raiders 2-11. I think one thing about the Raiders that makes it very interesting is that their problems are very similar to the problems of the Cowboys and the Jets, where the Cowboys, your owner is essentially your general manager. Mark Davis for the Raiders is the owner, and he basically does whatever the fuck he wants.
Right.
He's another one where I think he's like 78 years old with like a 23-year-old girlfriend. just
does whatever he wants.
Does whatever the fuck he wants.
Does not care what happens on the field.
But I don't think he understands modern day football, where the Raiders are a team where it's like they're so bad that again they're about to get the first overall pick this year, and it wasn't long, probably a couple decades, like a decade ago, where they also had the first overall pick, and they're just consistently drafting in the top 10, getting pick after pick, and they just can't seem to rebuild. The only good decision that they have really made was that they got Derek Carr when they first drafted him. And he was the anchor to that team for a while. For better, for worse, he was that rock for the Raiders when they were still in Oakland and then when they moved to Vegas. And obviously, once they moved to Vegas, they have not made a lot of good decisions, much like the Jets, a series of bad decisions over time that has led them to this point. It's very sad because it's like Antonio Pierce, the head coach, players wanted him, but now Mark Davis has basically shipped out all your talent to not signing players, and they walk in free agency, trading away. You literally traded away Devontae Adams. He was the only bright spot on the team.
Trading away for nothing.
For nothing. For nothing. Absolute nothing. For a fucking grilled cheese sandwich.
Yeah, it was like a late third-round pick you got rid of Devontae Adams for. Devontae Adams.
And you could have at least got it from a desperate Jets team who's sitting at was it 3-10 at the moment? So
Right, so they're not far from you guys.
yeah, they're not far from the Raiders. But man, I think with the NFL, and this is my thing for the Raiders, the NFL wants the Raiders to be that, I guess, quote unquote heel. They want them to be the thorn in the side to the Chiefs specifically because they beat the Chiefs last year on Christmas. And they have shown that they can play them very close in recent time. But I think that win was very deceiving. That was the last time the Chiefs lost, by the way. Like, oh, sorry, they lost since, and then other than that, it was the Buffalo game this year. So from that game last year, they have only lost one other game, and that was Buffalo.
Right. So they've been on an absolute warpath since.
Yes, and I think that the NFL shouldn't want the Raiders. I think the team that they should be looking for within their own within that division right now, even the Chargers, but I would say the Broncos. I think the Broncos could be really that underdog and really be that challenger for the Chiefs within that division. Not this year, obviously. The Chiefs won the AFC West. I don't even think next year, but I think just in a couple years, the the Broncos and the Chargers have really shown that it's like you need, like, again, it doesn't take long to get good in this league. You just need to make the right decisions, and it starts with head coach. And I think that right now for the Raiders, the right decision is to move on from Antonio Pierce and search for a better coach and a better coaching staff, because right now, like, his team has produced the fewest rushing yards in the league. You're at the worst turnover differential at negative 17. You have the 24th ranked offense, 14th ranked defense, but yet you still give up on average 27 points a game. There's just so many, and your best player is probably going to leave next year.
Right.
So
you're falling apart totally.
But it starts from making the right decision at head coach, because I think that much like we talked about with what makes Mike McDaniel and D'Amico Ryan great young head coaches, is that they have an identity for their team. And right now, the Raiders have zero identity of who they are as a team. They're not good on offense. They can't run the ball. They can't, their defense isn't that good. Their only good spot is Max Crosby. And again, he's probably going to leave. And it's like there's so many fires to put out, and it's hard to put it all out once. But I think if you have someone that has a vision where it's like, no, let's fix it on this side first, and then it will take the process from year in and year out. And some coaches can do it quick, right? We've seen how good Sean Payton, like, it took 2 seasons with Sean Payton and the Broncos to be where they are right now. And the Broncos look to have their first playoff berth since they won the Super Bowl. All those
With
years ago,
Peyton Manning?
they have not made the playoffs since that Super Bowl.
Oh my God.
And they're about to make those playoffs. And again, the Chargers, the Lions, so many other great young head coaches that have a vision for their team and bring them their identity. I think that's very important. And then flip it over to Atlanta, right? Raheem Morris, I think he's been an adequate coach for the Falcons right now. Their defense still needs some work, and I think Kirk Cousins, it was a fun experiment, but he's not the guy that, you kind of hope for. He just looks like an old quarterback coming off an Achilles injury. And much like, I wouldn't say Aaron Rodgers, but he's looking better than Aaron Rodgers coming off that Achilles. But he has a vision with a lot of young offensive talent, especially on offense. The thing is, though, it's, your offense could score you 21 points, but when your defense gives up 42, you're going to lose those games. And I think that for the Falcons, it's like, look, if you want to be in the playoffs, you got to beat the Raiders, right? And if you're the Raiders, just keep doing what you're doing, because change is going to come about no matter what, whether you win or lose this game.
Right. Everything you said about the Raiders, I agree with you. When it comes to the Falcons, I said it earlier this year. I see the vision that they're trying to make a transition and become a zone run offense.
Mm-hmm.
Kirk Cousins started this year hot.
Mhm.
Have to give him his flowers. And that's his ceiling, is that he can play top tier football at his best. But you got to remember, you got to take the floor with the ceiling.
Mhm.
And his floor is he can throw a lot of interceptions in one game.
Mm-hmm.
It is very unfortunate that that ugly side of Kirk Cousins is starting to show itself at the end of the year. Like you say all the time, it's not who you play, it's when you play them.
Mm-hmm.
Kirk Cousins is playing his worst stretch of football right now in times when they need to have you at your best.
Mm-hmm.
So again, I see the vision in Atlanta. I don't see the vision with Kirk Cousins. You know, again, everyone kind of scratched their head when they paid him as much money as they did going into this year,
Mm-hmm.
directly after drafting a quarterback.
No, they paid for Kirk Cousins first and then drafted Michael Penix.
Right. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I had a flat. Okay. So, but even still, it's like that. Those plays in tandem don't make sense,
Mm-hmm.
especially if you're going to pay the quarterback that you know has a tendency to throw incredible amounts of interceptions in a must-win game at high numbers.
Mm-hmm.
4 interceptions in a game. He's had 9 interceptions in the last 3 games.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the alarm bells going off in Atlanta, where it's like, oh shit, we're not winning these games, and we're
And
not.
Kirk Cousins is not playing well.
Yeah, and it's like,
And
oh,
our
this is not what
defense
we
is
thought
falling
was going to
apart.
happen. Yeah.
And, you know, and it's almost like a when it rains, it pours situation in Atlanta right now. It's like one thing went wrong, and that was Kirk Cousins started slowing down, and then everyone, I guess, like hit the panic button. No one knows what to do, and they just started crumbling at their feet.
Mm-hmm.
To where now it's the defense has a lot of holes in it again. They looked like they were tightening up throughout the middle of the year. Now they're totally open. You know, the offensive line, it's in shambles.
Mm-hmm.
They started out tough. Now it's like they're gassed. This is a game of attrition, and they are not conditioned to go a full season.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that is a really bad habit for Atlanta historically, is in the middle of the year, they fizzle out to the point where they are limping into the back end of the season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I want to stick on that for just a moment too, where it's like, again, why did the schedule makers put this game on prime time? For the Raiders, we can speculate as to why. For the Falcons, it's to challenge them, to get them into playoff mode. It's like, if you truly believe you are a team that can represent the NFC South, because odds are there probably wouldn't, like, there's a lot of really good teams in the NFC, and especially for wild card, you're going to be fighting a lot of really good teams that are in the NFC for wildcard spots. I can think of 2 teams from the NFC North off the bat going into taking 2 wildcard spots, Vikings and Packers. But
Right.
But for the Falcons, again, your only real competition is the Bucs at this point, and I think it's again to challenge them, where it's like, look, it's a prime time game. Kirk Cousins has struggled in prime time historically. You're against the Raiders, the worst team in the league. And if you win this game, you keep your playoff hopes alive. If you lose this game, you really make it harder for you to prove that Kirk Cousins and this Atlanta Falcons experiment was successful this year. And I think that anything short of a playoff appearance would be very unsatisfactory to the fans of Atlanta. And I think that with the expectations like, oh no, we have a veteran at the helm, he's going to lead these young guys into a great offense and a great team this year. But defense was a little bit neglected this year. Your best player is still Jesse Bates, at safety. And I mean, shout out to Jesse Bates, he's getting it done. But goddamn, like there, there's two sides to actually. There's like three phases to football: offense, defense, and special teams. And the offense has now been underperforming, and you're 6-6, and it's not pretty. And it's if you are to make the playoffs, you have to beat the Raiders. It's a softball. It's an underhand pitch, but you got to knock it out of the park.
Yeah, you can't come out playing your worst football against the worst team because it's again they are professionals and they can just come out and win. And if you lose to the Raiders, that would probably be a telltale sign that the Kirk Cousins experiment is a total failure.
Mm-hmm.
You got to go back to the drawing board, and it's probably going to be Michael Penix's turn.
I'm fine with that. Personally,
I'm fine with that too. I wish they went with him.
Yeah, I honestly I don't mind him sitting for the year. But the thing is though, if the idea was to have Penix sit, right, for 4 years under Kirk Cousins,
that's a long time.
yeah, I was gonna say I don't think this contract for Kirk Cousins is going to look very favorable next year.
It doesn't look favorable now
year,
over
exactly.
the last 3 games.
Exactly, because you know what it is you paid him an exuberant amount of money, while at the same time, if you want to have that quarterback, you're sitting him for as long as he's playing. So if Kirk Cousins is not playing, but yet you're starting Michael Penix next year, you're still paying Kirk Cousins all that money, and that's the problem with the Russell Wilson contract. We saw it again, where like teams will really pay for so many years with an aging quarterback and expect them to be that young version of themselves, and it's like, no, they're not. They're that older version of themselves, and it's like before they even set foot on the field, you already want them to play for 4 years. That's crazy. Whereas I think, say, a team like Minnesota did it a little bit better this offseason, where it's like you get Sam Darnold on a 1-year deal, have J.J. McCarthy. Obviously, your plan was to start him, but now you have him sit just 1 year, and then you can make a choice next year where to either extend Darnold or start JJ, but you have that choice. Atlanta, their choice is going to be, okay, if Kirk Cousins didn't work out this year, do we sit him next year and still pay him all that money? Do we cut him and then eat all that dead cap? Or
big L.
Or do we have Michael Penix just keep sitting and Kirk Cousins still playing? And I think that those are the big decisions for Atlanta this offseason. And none of those decisions, I don't think, have favorable outcomes.
No, I have to agree with you. When it comes to that Kirk Cousins contract, again, it's just the sheer amount of money for a quarterback coming off of a total Achilles rupture. Now, that thing came off the bone, and he had to have a full surgery, recovery, the whole 9.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're going to pay him however the fuck amount you paid him, and then you're going to draft a quarterback who, by the time he's ready to play, he's going to need to be paid as well.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to pay him with no report card. Yeah. So it's hard. It's again it could almost turn into a chokehold situation where the Falcons can go to Kirk Cousins and be like, listen, we're going to need you to take a back seat and let Michael Penix play. And he says, no, I'm not doing that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to start because you're paying me to start. And then what do you say? You say, take a seat? You know, he's telling you I'm starting because you're paying me to start. So you're going to keep him in.
Mm-hmm.
You know, now you're strapped to the money. That's like Aaron Rodgers all over again. Just an Aaron Rodgers deal.
Mm-hmm.
Russell Wilson's a little different because he fell in. They paid him a bunch of money on a team that didn't want him. A bunch of coaches that didn't want him.
Well, when Seattle and Denver made that trade, they made the trade. He had 2 years left on his deal in Seattle. So Denver was going to keep him for 2 years, fresh off the trade.
Mm-hmm.
Upon making that trade, they then extended him for another 4 years before the season started. So
Right.
then
So
they
it's
added
6
the
years
four.
before
So
he
it was
even
six
plays a snap.
years. Yeah, before 6 years, 50 million dollars.
Something like that, yeah.
So for 6 years, they cut him after two. I don't think I don't think Kirk Cousins is staying the full 4 years on this Atlanta deal.
I can't see it happening. And honestly, I feel like that's just another segment of the historically just erratic behavior that has been the Atlanta franchise.
Mhm.
It's just they always they don't know who to pay, they don't know when to pay them, they don't know who to pick up, they don't know when to get people, they don't know when to dip into the drafts. They just don't know. It's
Mhm.
just like every year it's a blank slate. They don't learn from the year before that you cannot do things like this.
Mhm.
You cannot sign people to massive deals when you don't have a bunch of help up front. They should have learned when they signed Julio Jones to a massive contract and they had an aged Matt Ryan throwing to him with no help behind in the backup.
Mhm.
They should have learned then. They should have learned a bunch of years back when they only had Mike Vick and he had nobody to throw to. He had no running back with him. He had no defense upon him.
Mhm.
It's just time and time again when it's like you have a vision as to what you want to do as a team, and then you go ahead and you do something that makes everybody scratch their head and wonder what was everything leading up to this point for then.
Mhm.
Everything you did leading up to this point, you just put up in smoke.
I gotta say, for Atlanta again, I think if we're sticking with the theme here, is the big word is identity. And right now, Atlanta is at a crisis of identity where it's like, we know the identity of the Kirk Cousins Falcons is at best, you win the NFC South and you're bouncing first round in the playoffs. At best. At worst,
You don't
you
make the
don't
playoffs.
you don't win the playoffs and you're sub 500. And it's like, okay. But I think that most Atlanta fans know that this is not the Falcons going forward. And I think that that's the big question going forward is like, who are the Atlanta Falcons in 2025? What is their identity going to be come then? Because the identity that they are now for this team, again, at best, you win the NFC South and you bounce in the first round. Because the NFC right now, there's just so many better teams out there than the Falcons, and the Falcons, they could be good, but they need a vision and they need a leader. And I think Raheem Morris is a solid coach, but he's got to really give them that identity that they really need.
Yeah, again, I see the vision that you want to be a zone running offense.
Mm-hmm.
But with a good run, you need to have a competent quarterback that throws when it's time being so you can mix in a play action.
Mm-hmm.
You want to have a structured playbook like that, that's fine. Kirk Cousins is not that guy.
Mm-hmm.
And again, it's almost telltale that the future with Atlanta will be Michael Penix. But again, if he doesn't have anything to show, by the time he's doing live reps, it's going to be too late. He's going to be put in one good season, then he's not going to want to re-sign with you guys. You sat me for 4 years.
I think what the Falcons they're trying to do.
It's the Jordan Love effect.
Yes, and that's exactly what I was going to say. It's the Jordan Love, where it's like they're going to put themselves in a position where it's like by the time that their aged quarterback is gone, they're ready to start this quarterback after sitting all these years. But the thing is though, and as Michael Penix is not Jordan Love,
No.
and Jordan Love just going into last year, it's like there was a lot of mystery. There was a big mystery with Jordan Love, and even throughout the season, we still questioned a lot of who he is. And it wasn't until even late last year into this year where it's like, okay, we know who Jordan Love is. Michael Penix, it's like the Falcons are not giving themselves that luxury of being able to keep him if he does well for that 1 year. So
Right.
it's like they don't have that luxury of having him on an extension or anything like that. It's like at this point in time, and then the what hurts them the most is like the money that they could spend come 4 years down the road. The money that they could spend on uh, Michael Penix is just being spent on Kirk Cousins. And
Right.
I think that was the big thing that killed their team this year was that they jumped the shark on that Kirk Cousins deal.
Oh yeah, no, they cut their nose off to spite their face so bad when it comes to the monetary
Mm-hmm.
value that went towards Kirk Cousins. They could have given him half that money and went and just stockpiled their team with future talent for when Michael Penix takes the helm. And that's what you see a well-structured franchise do. They'll give an aged quarterback half that money,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll use the rest of it, and they'll invest in the rest of the team because it is a team game, not a
Mm-hmm.
one-person game. That was a very, I don't want to, because it's hundreds of millions of dollars, I don't want to call it penny smart, but it was a penny smart move.
It was a very
It was a
it was they're making a
short
decision with their
faced.
blinders on. Yeah, they were just
Right.
making a decision with their blinders on the
It
whole
was like a
time.
tunnel vision move.
Where it's
You
like,
know,
oh, we
it's
can make a push this season. Where it's like, realistically, no, you couldn't have.
no, because that wasn't the one piece you missed. It was like the whole we're
Exactly.
quarterback away mantra. It's
Mm-hmm.
no, you have more issues than that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have one good weapon with Kyle Pitts now that he can catch the ball effectively. You need more. You have one good running back. You need another. You have
Well,
a couple of good.
they actually have two good running backs. I got to give a shout out to Tyler Algier. He's been pretty solid for them, and obviously
Valid.
Bijan as well. Like, so they have a two-headed running back. They have Drake London, who's getting he's having his best year under Kirk Cousins because Desmond Ridder is it. Oh, by the way, this is the Desmond Ridder revenge game.
Oh, that's right, because Aiden O'Connell's out on IR now. Because, who else needs another injury except the Raiders?
Man, Atlanta, if you lose to Desmond Ridder, God bless your soul, man. Then you don't deserve to make it to the playoffs at that point in time.
If Desmond Ritter if he shows you guys that he was not the problem, then again, I agree with you wholeheartedly. You don't deserve to be in the playoffs, and your season should be over by the end of this game.
The Desmond Ridder revenge game.
That's an ugly sentence.
Oh my God. Well, I mean, last week was the Kirk Cousins revenge game against the Vikings. That really wasn't much revenge. That was all just Vikings just putting up.
That was you are the problem, and we moved on.
I will say though, looking at that game, and again, the film was very fresh. There was a lot of defensive misplays on Atlanta's part. Their cornerbacks,
Right.
especially number 20, I don't know who he was, but he just completely whiffed on his assignment. And obviously, his assignment was Justin Jefferson. It was not an easy assignment, but you left this man.
Yeah,
wide
but
open.
I've never seen a miscue like that in my life. You're talking about the one at the end where he was like 30 yards off.
That wasn't at the end. That was like in like the second quarter. But yeah,
Okay.
it was where he tripped and fell.
He
and
tripped.
all that. Yeah,
He tripped. He was all the way like down right compared to where the route was.
Mhm.
The route was like up in the middle, and he was at the numbers, and he was on his face at the numbers because he tripped on himself. And it's like
a lot of defensive misplays in Atlanta, and that's why it's again priority of the ball. Mm-hmm.
Just disorganization across the board for Atlanta.
Man, Atlanta, if you want to make the playoffs, you have to win this game. And to think that for Atlanta, this is a must-win game. For the Raiders, it's just a game, right? It's just,
there's nothing to lose here.
Nothing to lose here, right? I mean, obviously, you still want the first overall pick, but it's like, you're the players don't want to. Players decide the games, and we'll see how the Raiders players respond to adversity. It's like when all is lost. That just seems to be the Raiders' mantra: is when all is lost, fuck them.
Right.
So, but for Atlanta, this is a must-win game. Out of all the context with all playoffs and stuff like that, this is must-win.
And by all rights, you should absolutely thrash this team.
Yes.
There's no excuse why you shouldn't put 30 up on this team easily.
But it's prime time.
But it's prime time, and Kirk Cousins is neck deep in his worst career stretch of football.
Yeah. And so
It's not a good equation for the Falcons right now. Going into a 2-11 Raiders team with nothing to lose.
I don't know, man. I might be smelling something here. No.
The Raiders could just come out and have a day, man. It could just happen.
Max Crosby could just look across the ball and be like, "I'm hungry," and then just go.
Right, he comes out and gets 4 sacks. Keep in mind, they got to Baker last week.
Yep,
a lot.
They did
a lot. They knocked him down 8 times.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that Kirk Cousins can take eight knockdowns.
I don't know. I don't think. I don't think he wants
is a lot for Kirk Cousins.
Yeah. And like Tom Brady said before, it's like the older you get, the more those hits hurt. And
right,
so I don't think Kirk want those. He does not want those.
You don't want 8 knockdowns from Max Crosby.
Oh no. Oh man. This is gonna be a fun one. Any final thoughts on this one, CP?
Just Falcons, you better get it together, and the Raiders, if you have nothing to lose, fuck it, just let it rip. Have a day.
Just say fuck it. When the world's against you, fuck them.
Fuck them.
Oh man, so there you have it, guys. That is our second game that we wanted to talk about this week. There's again playoff implications on the line for a Monday night game. Again, there's a this is must-win TV, must-win for a lot of teams. But CP, are you ready to make some picks?
Yeah, this week should be interesting. Let's do it.
Let's start off Thursday night, where the Rams come to play the 49ers in San Fran. Who you got?
Give me the Rams. Healthier team wins, and again, the healthier they get, the nastier they get.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Rams as well. They have momentum on their side, and that win against Buffalo was huge for their locker room, huge for the Rams to believe that they can be a playoff caliber team. I'm going to take the Rams to beat the 49ers on Thursday night. Let's move on to Sunday's slate of games, starting with the Washington Commanders going to New Orleans to play the Saints. Who you got?
Give me Washington. It's going to be a get-right game for them. Playoffs right around the corner. You got to start fine-tuning everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going to go with Washington as well. Again, it has to be a get-right game. New Orleans, I mean, this could be a prime trap game typically for teams that are looking to make a playoff hunt and they just kind of get bounced by that one team. But I'll take the Commanders to beat the Saints as well. Let's go to Cleveland, where the Chiefs come to play the Browns. I'm going to take the Chiefs. Chiefs are the Chiefs. The Browns are the Browns, and that I'm not going to overthink this one.
Yeah, no, the Winston faith ain't going to get past the Chiefs' black magic. It's just what it is.
Not this week.
Not this week. Give me the Chiefs.
I can't wait for the Jameis Winston quote for the week, though. It's going to be good.
Right. His last one was on, I need the Lord to deliver me from pick sixes.
Well, he did throw interceptions. It just wasn't a pick six. Oh, man. Let's move on to Tennessee, where the Bengals come to play the Titans. CP, who you got?
Give me the Bengals. They're going to keep fighting, and this is one where they stay alive for just another week.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. I'm going to take the Bengals as well. Staying alive. Again, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase having career years, but they're probably not going to make the playoffs, which is just absolutely wild in the NFL. But hey, Cincinnati, I think you'll beat the Titans. Okay, let's move on to Houston. Dolphins and Texans. This is a great one. CP, who you got?
Sorry, T. You're going to have to give me Houston. As much as I would like to see Miami win and keep their head above water, again, I think it's a little too late. Houston, this is their time. This is a get-right game for them. They got to start fine-tuning stuff before making the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
Miami still have a lot to fight for. Houston has more to lose. You got to give me Houston.
Man, this is a tough one. I'm going to take Miami on this one. I do think that they are not going to make the playoffs, but I think that right now they're catching Houston at the right time for them, the wrong time for Houston, especially when Houston is, again, they have a lot of close games. And Dolphins can prove that they can win a lot of close games too. We just saw it last week. He made the comeback against the Jets, and that's nothing to scoff at either. So I'm gonna again, this is kind of a coin flip game for me, but I'm gonna take the Dolphins to beat the Texans.
Cool.
Let's move to the MetLife, where the Ravens come to play the Giants. I'm gonna take the Ravens. Obviously, I think this should be that get right game for the Ravens. But CP, who you got for this one?
You're gonna have to give me the Ravens, but I'm gonna keep my eye on that Baltimore team to make sure that everyone comes out more or less unscathed from that fucking field. Got to keep in mind it is MetLife Stadium, and it takes no prisoners. It takes all prisoners.
Yeah, it takes souls at the stadium, man. That's atrocious. I'm looking for the defense to get right. I want the defense to keep the Giants at a low scoring capacity, and to me, that's going to really restore a little bit of faith in the Ravens going into the postseason. So let's move on to Jacksonville, where the Jets come to play the Jags. The 3-10 Jets against the 3-10 Jags. Who you got, CP?
Give me Jacksonville. I don't know why. Just give me Jacksonville.
I don't know what, because he doesn't like the green, baby.
They're both green.
That's true. Well, teal. It's teal blue or teal green? It's greenish blue.
We could get into that one day if you want.
I'm gonna take the Jets. This is probably one of the few times this year I'm taking the Jets to win a game, but are the Jags that much worse than the Jets? I don't know. Both these teams are just really bad. Mikey, I'm sorry, but I'll take them. Let's move to Carolina, where the Cowboys come to play the Panthers. I see something in your eyes, CP. Who you got?
I see the tables turning this week. I see Carolina winning this game. This is the game that we've been talking about for 3 weeks, where they're going to win this game and heads are going to start to turn. Give me Carolina.
I too am going to take Carolina.
Yes.
Yeah. I was looking at this before. I'm like, no, because like you and I were saying, I think this is primed for Carolina to win a game and really
to turn the tables
against Dallas. Out of all teams, again, Dallas is they can present some challenges for Carolina. Micah Parsons is going to be looking
present
and hunting for Bryce Young, and I'm sure he's going to get his sacks, right? But can you come away with the win in Carolina?
If you can come out with this win, just start popping the questions of who you guys are. We see you, Carolina. You can do this. You can win this game.
This is a winnable game for Carolina, and I'm glad we thought the same thing there, CP. Oh man, let's go to LA, where the Bucks play the Chargers. We have a very interesting slate of games on this backstretch here, but this is one of them. CP, who you got? Bucks, Chargers.
Chargers at home. Tampa, they're still clawing. The Chargers are clawing. This is a very good game. This is like a playoff game. Give me Tampa. I've been riding with Baker this year, so I'm gonna ride with Baker at the end of the year.
I respect it. I'm gonna go with the Chargers on this one. I just think that Jim Harbaugh is really, again, both these teams need to win in order to be, their plates are not secured, or their fates are not secured in the playoffs. I'm going to take the Chargers. I just think Jim Harbaugh's getting his team ready for the playoffs. He smells it. He's hungry for it. He wants to make an appearance. And I think that Tampa, their defense is just very vulnerable. That game against the Raiders, even though it was a 2-possession game, it didn't get that way until the very end. It was a 14-10 game for most of that. And The Raiders kept hanging around, hanging around. I think the Chargers hang around. I think they slam the door. So I'm going to take the Chargers over the Bucks.
Cool.
Let's move to Denver, where the Colts and the Broncos play. Ooh, playoff berths are on the line. CP, who you got?
This is an interesting game. I almost wanted to talk this game. Give me Denver. I believe in Bo Nix. I said at the beginning of the year that Denver could absolutely steal a wild card spot, and look where we are now. They are full steam ahead for a wild card spot.
Yeah, I believe, man. I'm going with Denver over the Colts, man. I think Denver's hungry. They want to be in there, and I'm excited for it. So,
100%.
oh yeah. Let's move on to Arizona, where the Patriots come to play the Cardinals. CP, who you got?
Give me Arizona, but again, they're one of those teams that is, they're limping to the finish line right now. They need to keep their heads above water.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm going to take Arizona as well. Arizona, you just have to cash out. Just cash out just 2 to 3 times. You can win this game, but can't settle for field goals.
Right.
Okay, let's move on to potential Super Bowl matchup. Buffalo Bills and Detroit Lions. What a fucking game this is going to be. And again, we're talking Falcons Raiders, right? But this is potential Super Bowl. Who you got for this one, CP?
Come on now.
This is tough. This is tough.
No, this one's tough. You're gonna have to give me Detroit. Gotta ride with Dan Campbell. But you want to talk? This could be potential game of the year.
Oh, man, it really could.
This has game of the year written all over it.
Man, I'm gonna take Buffalo on this one.
Oof. Okay.
Yeah, Josh Allen, he's
Walking into Detroit, huh?
walking into Detroit. I think the Bills can do it. But man, this is gonna have fireworks written all over it, man. I'm just anticipating of what this game could be. It could be one for the ages. And I mean, if this is the Super Bowl, I'd absolutely fucking love it. I think all of America would love it too. But watch, we're gonna get Chiefs Eagles again.
You shut the fuck up. You don't even put that in the fucking universe.
Well, I mean, we could also get a Steelers Eagles Super Bowl as well, but we're getting that this Sunday. That could be a potential Super Bowl matchup as well. But CP, who you got for this one?
Battle of PA. You're gonna have to give me Pittsburgh. This is come on. It's like not even a
No, but
not
this
even
is gonna be a
question here.
really good one though.
This is gonna be a great game. It's gonna come down to if we can stop Saquon Barkley.
Mm-hmm.
He's been the motor of that team, even though he came into them with momentum. He became that engine, and it's going to be up to our defense to really hinder him. But we have so many pieces that it's going to be hard for him to break free after one miss.
Yeah. Oh man,
This is a great matchup.
This is going to be such a great matchup, and I can't wait for the matchups within the matchups, and
Right.
just seeing the one-on-one matchups between their Lane Johnson versus T.J. Watt. That is going to be
That's going to be nasty.
That's an absolute battle in the trenches, and I'm so looking forward to it. Man, I gotta choose. I'm gonna go with the Eagles on this one. Again, momentum is hot. Not that the Steelers don't have momentum either, but man, Eagles just.
You need us to lose. That's the big thing there too.
I need you guys to lose, but also that Philly defense is real too.
They're real. I'm not going to take anything away from them.
There's a lot of credit to Saquon and how much he's just rejuvenated that organization. But I got to say, Vic Fangio and that defense, they have really made a solid difference. They are night and day from the team they were defensively last year. You're having Cooper DeJean, a rookie, clean arm wrap tackle Derrick Henry down. That's
That kid has a
fundamentals.
wrestling background, and I won't be fucking swayed.
That is like fundamentally, the Eagles are.
One of the cleanest tackling teams in the league.
And if you are a team that if you have to beat the Steelers, you have to be on your fundamentals. And I think that the Eagles have proven it this year that they have learned from last year. But man, this is going to be a great game, and I can see this go either way. But I'm excited for this one.
This one's gonna be fun.
Oh yeah. Which leads us to the Sunday night primetime. God damn, another really good
Unbelievable
matchup.
matchup.
The Packers and the Seahawks. Think about that for a second. Two teams fighting for their playoff spot, not guaranteed. Oh man. CP, who you got for this one?
This one's tough, man. It's Green Bay going into Seattle at home in prime time with Seahawks pretty much backs against the wall right now. Give me Green Bay. I like Jordan Love. I trust Jordan Love more than I trust Geno Smith.
Mm-hmm. Man, that's tough. This is such a tough matchup. I always love primetime games in Seattle. They are always electric. I'm going to take the Packers. I just think the Packers and the NFC North this year just has that slight edge over every other team in the league. The NFC North, aside from the Bears, the rest of them are just absolutely on fire this year. Which leads us to Monday, one of Monday's two primetime games, the Chicago Bears coming to play the Minnesota Vikings. So CP, I'm putting you down for Bears, right? You going Caleb Williams and the Bears?
No, the Vikings are gonna floor these guys and end their playoff hopes.
Aren't they already eliminated?
Are they eliminated? Let me check.
4 wins. I think they're already done.
No, actually.
What?
The only team in the NFC that is statistically eliminated
is the Giants.
It's the Giants.
Yeah, so Minnesota's going to put that to bed.
They're going to put that one to sleep. Think about that shit for a second. Everybody in the NFC, save for the Giants, are fucking still somehow statistically in right now. It's abysmal.
You mean the
Panthers with 3 wins
could make
are still technically in?
Yep. Hey, Bryce Young can make that push, man.
Joe, beat the Cowboys to see what happens.
No, what would actually have to happen is that they would need to win out, and then literally the Bucks and the Falcons need to lose out. That's how they win. I know.
I ain't saying it ain't possible.
It ain't possible. I mean, it's possible.
Not probable, but it's possible.
But let's go to Vegas where the Falcons play the Raiders. Do the Falcons lose out, CP, or do they get this win over the Raiders? Oh no.
This one shouldn't be as hard as it is.
No, CP, don't do it. Don't do it, mate.
I'm not doing it.
Okay.
I'm not. But it shouldn't. I shouldn't look at this and be like, oh yeah, the Raiders might actually come out and do this. Because, again, Kirk Cousins is playing so bad. You're going to have to give me the Falcons, but you got to remember the floor of Kirk Cousins is he can't play at night.
I know.
He can't fucking play at night.
Just don't turn the ball over early, man. I honestly, that's going to be what's defines this game is turnovers. Whoever turns the ball least. Kirk Cousins, again, 9 interceptions in the last 3 games. Raiders have a negative 17 turnover differential. Whoever turns the ball over the least, you're going to win this game. I'll take the Falcons to beat the Raiders. But goddamn, man, it shouldn't be that hard.
It shouldn't be as hard as it was. All right, guys. There you have it. There's the 2 games that we wanted to talk. There's our picks for the week. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe. If you want to come on for the postseason, please let John or myself know, and we will schedule you as the bracket makes itself happen. Still a couple of weeks left in the regular season too. But until then, right around the corner, this week is going to be great.